So this right here is the result of my advanced jerry-rigging. I know that kind of sounds like an oxymoron, but that's kind of what it is, because I went into this and I really didn't know what I was doing, or really how to get the light off, so it was just a matter of trial and error. Nevertheless, it did come out pretty good. As you can see, the reflection you see, that's just because of the manufacturer paint. It's a lot more reflective than the aftermarket chrome paint that I used, but it has a good amount of, it matches the other one heck of a lot better than it did at the beginning, and it's barely noticeable, I have to say. So I'm just going to do a demonstration of how I did this. I didn't want to do it while I was doing it, partly because I didn't want to lead you in the wrong direction if I wasn't doing it right or whatever. As you might have noticed, I'm on a couch here and there's a paper towel. The reason for that is that when I'm turning this car over, I just don't want to scratch the paint up on top, so I'm making sure it's a really clean paper towel on a nice soft surface. Now, for the sake of time, I've already unscrewed the body, and once you unscrew it, it simply pops off. I did have a little bit of trouble with this one though. It wasn't coming off too well, so I had to really pull on it to get it off. Then this is the interior right there. And if I bring this a little bit closer here, steering column's right here, and we have to get this, the bumper off. So there are two screws right here and here. And you quite simply unscrew it out of the metal body. Make sure you don't strip it when you're putting it back in. It's a little awkward to get off because, oh, there we go, that was easy. Just because of this right here, it's kind of semi-blocking the screw, and as you can see, it has taken off a little bit of the color there, but that can easily be put back on with a Sharpie. So this is the headlight in question right here. Make sure you're not doing the opposite one, because when you flip it over, it's opposite. So I'm going to switch this over to macro so we can get a better view of what I'm doing. Now this is all already done, so that's why you see the scratching and the markings. Obviously that scratching isn't going to be noticeable once the car is put back together, and it's an unfortunate fact, but that's what happens. So you can see on this side we have a couple pegs here. So we have this peg and this peg. You need to get both of those out. So the way to do that is you get a knife. Be very, very gentle. You don't want to scratch the paint of any sort. Of course, this is okay if you scratch it because that's the interior. And just keep chipping away at this. I already did it, so there's really not much use to it now. But yeah, just keep chipping away until the very top, the head of that plastic peg is gone, and that way it can easily be. That way I can just kind of push it out. So let's get a toothpick. Toothpicks are kind of critical in this. This side, as you can see, already has paint on it. It's dry, so it shouldn't be a problem. So here's the car now. There's the headlight in question. Now to get this thing off, it was a little tricky, but I would recommend, once you cut this out, you kind of give a push on this one and another push on this one. Now this one, it kind of bounces right back because that's actually part of the entire trunk. And keep that on the paper towel. We do not want to scratch the paint. So now you can see that that's coming out right there. And to actually get it out, you need to hold this down. It's a little awkward. Hold this down and kind of pull it right out. Because as you can see, there's a little hole right there, and that's what it was holding into place. And once you get this off, you can get the cap off pretty easily. There we go. It just slides right off. There's no glue, nothing. So this just makes it easier to get in, obviously to get into it, but also just to handle it, and it's a lot less risky when you try to paint it too, because if you don't have a steady hand, then you might slip and get on the paint. This chrome paint that I use, let's see if we can, here it is. This is Tester's All-Purpose Chrome Paint. I bought it at a hobby store. It was like $6. No problem. This is actually old. I haven't used it in a while. All I did was spray it into this little margarine container, and it created a nice little puddle for me to dip my my toothpick into. And I would highly recommend using a toothpick. Anything else is actually going to be too big to get the correct amount of detail on this thing. So once you got that done, you dip it in there. This stuff is rather permanent, but it's not the end of the world if you mess up. You can scratch it off. But nevertheless, I would be extremely gentle. Again, I'm not going to do this because I already finished this thing, and it looks pretty good. So I'm going to use the clean side just to demonstrate it. And so what you really want to do is, I would take this as a model. Use this other headlight as a model. I just got chrome paint on me. Okay. And just fill this in the best you can. Just every once in a while take a dab. Before you put it onto the car, I would recommend just making sure it's not too blobby, because then it might get all over the place. You want to make sure you don't cover this part, because with this Welly defect, they did happen to cover up a certain area. Painting process, dab, try to get around these areas here. Make sure you keep this chrome. That's the original factory chrome there, and it is it's a lot more reflective than the Testers, but so it's always worth to keep as much as you can, so I would not cover that. So this part was also kind of lacking color, so I also took the toothpick and went around here, around this area and here, just to basically fill it in to make it match that. So once that was all complete, of course it is complete, I need to reinstall the car. Now putting this back together, it's a little bit more difficult than it was to take apart, as everything is, right? And what I would recommend first is cleaning this, because you're going to actually have fingerprints probably on the inside of this. And once you get the fingerprints on there, it's kind of tough to get them off, especially if the car is put back together. So we just want to get it off from the inside. Just clean it up. This is my soft paper towel method that I used in my demonstration video on how to clean model cars. Hold up to the light, looks pretty good. Now I would recommend, first you want to make sure there's no dust in this. Yeah, we're good. Just slip that back into its original hole. Of course, once the paint's dry, you definitely want to make sure the paint's dry before you do this. But it does dry pretty quick if you use the Testers. Okay, let's get that out of the way. This is where it gets kind of difficult to get this thing back in. You need to slip it back into this original slot right here. And it's not going to do it. Hold on. There we go. And then you have to get the other side into this little peg hole. It's not too easy. There we go. Okay. So that's in there. You close it up, and I would, before you put the car together, of course, I would kind of look at it and make sure you like the way it looks. From the front, you're not going to notice as much reflectivity on the one that you repaired, but it's better than nothing. So I think that came out pretty good. There's that one. There's the repaired one. And it is now time just to hold this into place to make sure it doesn't break off again. I'm going to use some glue. So I have a little tacky glue, Aleene's original tacky glue. I don't know. It's an all-purpose glue. I've had it for a long time, but it works pretty well. It's water-based. It's not oil-based or anything like that, so it dries up pretty nicely. And if you mess up, it's nice because you can always repair. So again, I'm using the toothpick, and I want to just get around here just to make sure it doesn't break off again. This one especially. You could use model glue if you'd like. It might actually be steadier, but I'm not sure I would risk that. It's pretty tough stuff, and if you mess up, then it could leak onto the other side, and there's no way of getting it off. At least with this, there's some safety. I think I forgot to mention that there is a little plastic peg here that you'll need to try to pull off with the knife too. I neglected that one. Okay. Reinstall phase here. Oh dear. Don't scratch. Perfectionists like me might have some difficulty taking apart cars because it's very nerve-wracking. What if I mess up? These are metal screws, so like I said, there is a risk of stripping them. So I wouldn't do this too tight. There we are. On this side, make sure that crease is there. Good thing about Welly is that their creases are really close together, so there's not much gaps like you see in the Barago models. Alright. Now we're going to take this. It's kind of cool to look into this thing. I like, to see all the buttons. I mean, there's no doubt about this that despite the slight flaw in the design, the actual car is really, really nice. Very nicely done, I have to say. Where's my screwdriver? This is the one I had difficulty with, but I think today it's going to be nice to me. Yep. So as right here, this is the product date. I'm not. This may be the reason. All the cars that were produced on July 15th, 2011, might actually have this problem. So, because it's obviously a batch issue. If I got it from two separate companies and they both had this exact same problem. Sometimes you just get lemons, and that's normal. But this wasn't a lemon. Oh, stripping that one, little did I know. Make sure you put the screw back in. Again, you want tight, but not too tight, so it's going to mess it up.